Hello, good evening. Joining us live stream. I'm Zaima, the moderator for today's session. For today's webinar, the topic is about building a strong foundation on education and training for digital tech careers. Before diving into the discussion, I would like to thank HCL Tech Sri Lanka for partnering with us for the monthly webinar series. To give a little of an introduction about HCL Tech, HCL Tech Sri Lanka is a next generation global technology company that helps enterprises reimagine their businesses for the digital world. Although it has been around 2.5 years for HCL Tech to have started, it has created for than 500 job opportunities for graduates and undergraduates in the tech industry. HCL Tech is globally presented in over 50 countries and has plenty of opportunities on a global scale and is extremely proud to serve the world's best brands right here from their facility at Cinnamon Life in Sri Lanka. I'm very thrilled and excited to announce HCL Tech is launching its Tech Way program, which is exclusive for senior school students. The Tech Way program is an alternate path for advanced level students who wish to become tech engineers in the future. Tech B scholars will get to complete their IT degree whilst also having the opportunity to work at HCL Tech. This program is open to any school students across Sri Lanka. And if you are interested in joining and pursuing your career in the tech field, do not miss this opportunity. You can get more information on the HCL Tech Sri Lanka website. Introducing our prospective speakers tonight. We have Dhammika Marasinghe. He's a computer engineering graduate from the University of Peradeniya. He's a general council member of the Sri Lanka Association of Software and Services. He is a director of TRACE, vice chair of IEEE Sri Lanka section, and the recipient of the Best Young Leader of ASAC in Sri Lanka 2016. And the next speaker tonight is Sanjaya Elvitigala. He's an AI researcher, the CEO at eLearning.lk, co-founder of Maya.lk, and he is an award-winning entrepreneur. Thank you so much, Mr. Dhammika Marasinghe and Mr. Sanjaya Elvitigala, for accepting our invitation and being here with us today. With that, we have a very small commercial on HCL Tech.
Progress. It comes from having a clear objective, a goal, moving forward unwaveringly towards success. It can be fast, it can be slow, it can be disruptive, but one thing it can't be is stopped. While progress might seem inevitable, breakthroughs come from supercharging it, delivering business outcomes at scale, fulfilling aspirations with compassion, innovating responsibly, finding new levels of efficiency, removing barriers, unlocking potential. Business is always moving, so it's easy to confuse motion with real progress. Whether it's day-to-day success or transformational gains, we supercharge progress to change the game. HCL Tech, supercharging progress.
All right. Building a strong foundation, I believe, is its education which could cover up the statement right, as we are here to discuss on education and training for digital tech careers. As this specific field depends on the role we're interested to take up. However, we have two incredible personalities who would brief us on today's insightful topic. So welcome Mr. Dhammika and Mr. Sanjay on screen. So the first discussion I would like to talk about is what are some of the key skills and competencies that individuals need to succeed in digital tech careers, and how can these be effectively developed and nurtured?
I would say Dhammika take this first.
Sure. Thanks a lot, HCL as well as Chocolate for inviting for this discussion. I think the first question is around more about the key skills and competencies that require for the digital tech career. But my answer would be more around for any career in the future, because that's what we are heading right now. Certain things, even certain capabilities in terms of digital, are certain core skills that anyone should be having. Previously, like we had this discussions around soft skills and hard skills. Personally, like rather than calling them hard skills, the soft skills, we can even consider them as the basic human skills or core skills. So on that front,
Dhammika, are you there? Okay, I
I
think he
guess
got
he is.
disconnected.
Yeah, I guess Mr.
Yeah,
Sanjay, could you continue? Yeah.
yeah, sure. So basically, if you are looking for key competencies and skills for digital tech careers, nowadays, information and knowledge is not that important. So that's what I wanted to tell you. Mainly because information and knowledge is out there. You can get it for free. You can simply we used to Google. Now we don't need to do even that. Now that researching part, the comprehension and getting all the details together and developing an answer, that part is also handled by a compute, handled by artificial intelligence. So now what you have to do is you have to find ways to apply that particular knowledge in a problem that you are given. So problem solving skills, knowing what you know, and knowing how to apply that particular data, knowledge, and all that to fix that problem is what's needed. And there's another one that is really important, even though that is not enough now. Now we need to do it quite fast. So speed is the other one that I was talking. I'm trying to share here, which is like, if even if you don't, even if you do it right, it doesn't really necessarily matter now if you don't do it fast enough. So time and speed is really important. So I have done some lecture sometime back on this as well. Basically, what I'm saying is, you don't need to necessarily do it 100% right even, right? So some might question what I'm saying. So basically, what happens is, if you do it right and you take a long time, it still doesn't matter. And even if you do it wrong and you take a very short time, it still doesn't matter. There's a middle ground where you do it okay enough, right? I mean, you have to comply, or you have to fulfill the basic criteria of quality control. Once you do that and you do that fast enough, then you can do iterations on that particular task or process or whatever, and then get it going. So getting it going fast enough is the skill and competency that we need. All the tech skills, knowledge, and everything else is available. Anyone can access them. You just have to get that out, apply it faster in a problem, and solve it quickly as possible. So that's the main thing that our future generations, as well as the existing ones, should be worried about. Dhammika, you went out, so I complete the answer. Maybe you
yes,
have a different
no worries.
idea.
Yeah, I had a small technical difficulty. So, but I was telling actually, like, regardless of the job area, even if you look at something like World Economic Forum top 10 skills for the next decade, you will see some of the areas like analytical thinking, creative thinking,
Mhm.
technological literacy, which was not there previously, because we didn't have this technological literacy as a one of like key skill that's required. So now these are certain areas that are coming up, and I think among all of these curiosities, something that's very important, as we are getting like a lot of different technologies, AI supported tools and all of that, because now it's matter of, I mean, about a year back, we had a Google where we can ask anything and then we have to surf through and get answers. But now with certain other generative tools like a OpenAI and all of that, now we have the answer much closer to us. So now it's much harder for us to figure out what are the exact questions that we should be asking, and you should be really curious enough to ask those questions, because if you don't answer the correct questions, you won't be getting correct answers, as we've been having a year back. So I think that's one of the key important skill that everyone should be building up while they are building up on things like the teamwork, critical thinking, problem solving, which is really important for the area. And I hope that will give us a base to continue the discussion.
Yes, so thank you, Sanjay and Dhammika. Yes, I would also definitely agree with that answer because I guess information and knowledge, just like Mr. Sanjay mentioned, you can easily grab it anytime now. It's just within a click of a minute. So, yeah, so moving to the next question. In what ways can educational institutions and industry collaborate to bridge the gap between the academic curricula and the evolving needs of digital tech careers?
Sanjay, you want to take a lead?
Okay. Okay. So each, I mean, so this is a problem that most people ask me almost all of the time, because oh, I mean, a lot of students coming up in Sri Lanka, they still worry about their academic qualifications. They worry about the piece of paper that they get after a certain diploma or a degree. So I always tell them, don't worry about that. It's only going to be a confirmation to your ability. It's not your ability. But there are organizations that requires a certain upfront document like that, a degree certificate or something, to join a particular organization. There are very few, but most organizations, what they're looking for is the capabilities, the ability to demonstrate your capabilities. So every intern or every person who's looking to go for a tech career must have their own must have their own profile or portfolio. Online portfolio is a must. So even if you do graphic design, if you do UI UX, digital marketing, software engineering, or security, information security, whatever, you have, use social media and use your own portfolio websites and other third party portfolio websites, and have that particular knowledge demonstrated. So people who are researching you online, the recruiters who are researching you online, can see that you have done some experiments, you have done some actual work, you have done some demo work, whatever that is, that has to be hosted and visible. So that's one of the major things. The way that companies can communicate with these institutions is that, don't let the institutions dictate the syllabus. Companies can come in and always tell them, okay, this is what we are looking for, these are the latest skills that the customers demand. Try to adhere to these standards, try to adhere to this time standard, try to adhere to these software standards, try to adhere to these curriculum standards. These are the things that we need covered up. If you do this, then we might be able to hire your students and give them a job. That the institutes also love that, because they want to assign students once they are done with the course. It's better that if they can find an internship or job immediately, right? So what happens is, companies and institutions has to be in communication. Some companies have their own institutions, so like you guys, I think. So basically what happens is, this communication needs to happen, and then the curriculums must be adjusted to industry standard. Having said that, there's another aspect of computing. What we're talking about is the business aspect, the business aspect of software engineering and all the other IT careers. But there's a science aspect also, which is more of an academic take up. So for those people, yes, go with that particular learning path, academic learning path, degree, MSc, PhD, whatever, and create new knowledge, create new workflows, innovate in terms of what we can do, and push the boundaries of technology. And that particular instances, that particular outcomes will be taken up by organizations, and will be taken up by training organizations, and standardize them to use in a business environment. So there are two avenues. So you have to decide which one you want to be in, and based on that, you have to decide, all right, I'm not going to go for a degree right now, I'm going to hone my skills, uh, make them more business oriented, build my portfolio, go to a company, show them, they might hire me, and while doing that, I will do a degree on the side. So that would be the best way I would suggest nowadays for students, if you are going after a career rather than a scientific or academic path down the line.
Quite
Yes,
of a great point.
in,
I'll add
yeah,
one additional point, Simon, from our way. So
sure.
in Slascom also, like about 2 years back in 2021, we asked from about like 60 companies around the fresh graduates. What do they feel about like them, and also certain challenges that they are facing. About 5 years back, the problems are more around like they don't have adequate softer skills, communication, likewise. But even to surprise us, last time when we asked, 34% of companies said graduates are available, but they don't have the correct skill set that they require to hire, which is quite of a sad situation also. over the past years, IT industry has been grown rapidly, and with that, like universities, certain other programs, we've seen a really good growth around the programs. But there again, as Sanjay mentioned, maybe they haven't understand what exactly is actually improving in terms of the demand. Because if we are trying to create all of the people as who are engaging with the academia or entrepreneurs or freelancers likewise, that wouldn't make sense in terms of numbers, because the numbers wise what we are seeing is it's a bigger portion of the employer base is compromises of the corporate, and then we have the academia people who are actually working on startups likewise. So the numbers also has to match this. So one thing that we always suggest is, rather than focusing on there's two things I want to highlight. One, most of the students, they are focused on the courses, course driven structure that's built in a semester. So they focus on one particular subject, they done and dusted, and once you are in the next semester, even you can't even remember what exactly is taught. So instead of, and even the like certain assessment, if you think of, if you are in a database, if you are learning database as a subject, then you are only getting a database assignment, which is not the case in the industry, because no one comes here and asks you to like write only few data base queries. So what we are suggesting is to have more capstone projects. So with the capstone project, what will happen, the things that they learn from multiple subjects will come into the picture, and it will actually create a certain output that actually can be utilized as of a product. So that's the one area that we are really highlight. The other area is, in early stages itself, trying to focus on the skill development. Because what we noticed, even like even if you look at a small kid, first they try to talk and like walk and all of different things without having a proper understanding about the language or the grammar and all of that. But initially, like they can talk, and then only like they learn around the grammar, they learn around the certain other nicer ways likewise. So in a similar manner, even when learning tech, what we ask even the academia and all of the other institutions who are engaging, initially try to build certain skill set, then you can dig deep and teach them more things around the fundamentals and how exactly that works. Because there has to be an inspiration coming in, and only when you do something, they really feel curious and they feel energetic about doing it and engaging. After that, if they are really interested, they'll dig it up. For example, if there's a person who's really interested in operating systems, and if they want to dig it up, that person will then they themselves will go and find more than enough articles, read about books, might even write certain compilers and even small OS themselves to get that fundamental knowledge. So that's the way that we think would be a really great approach if we want to actually focus on the future decade to come.
Absolutely. I completely agree with both of your points because I guess we are more focused towards the traditional learning, which is book and paper, which I guess we have to more focus on towards the industry, the corporate industry. So I guess it's all about skills, which would benefit us in the future for the future generations. So moving on to the next question. What are some of the innovative approaches or strategies that can be employed to enhance the teaching and learning experience in digital tech education?
Mm.
You want to take it up?
Right now, I think the one of the easiest, the innovative approach is trying to. This is primarily around like things like programming and all of that, trying to get hook of all these different co-pilots and coding assistants and all of that. Because that also gives you a really good way to think. Because about uh, few years back, we'll either get hooked into one of the framework or certain specific language, and we'll be very focused on the solution or the technical stack that we know, and then try to solve the problem using only that. So right now, with different all these other different co-pilots and all these assistant tools coming, a really good approach for a person to start is, they can imagine something that they actually want to build, and then with the support of these different assistant tools, they can actually build this. For example, let's say there's a person who's actually interested in creating a small learning platform. That person can understand like what exactly are the different requirements and all of that, then start they can start building themselves around by learning different aspects. If they don't have clarity on certain aspect, then they can utilize again these different type of tools to actually build something. Because what we believe in terms of the approaches that they can take in terms of the learning, the best way is to get your hands dirty, because the moment you do that, you build a skill that will last long. Sanjay, you want to add in?
Yeah. I do a lot of experiments when I teach. I teach in certain universities as a hobby. So basically, when I do teach, what I see is that I get students mostly as part of their programs subjects that they don't like, subjects that they don't want to be in. So it's not part of their natural progression to learn those subjects, and those are subjects more. So when it comes to, if a graphics guy does not want to learn coding, a coding guy does not want to do graphics, something like that. So we could actually affect the curriculums of these particular institutions across the board, in state and both state and private. Is that we kind of, on the first few modules, I have seen it to certain extents, but I want it to go to the next level, where after the first semester all the subjects are optional. So all the subjects are optional. Nothing is mandatory. You have to get a certain GPA. I mean, certain credits, certain amount of credits, of course, but those credits are in your control. You can choose which subjects you want to do after the first semester itself. So the first semester we are not going to teach anything technical. We are going to teach basically how to do learning. So learn to learn. That's what you basically have to do, and then select, and then they need to have a proper understanding about the future pathways of their particular chosen careers, and what are the different kinds of aspects that they can expect in the, what the industry expects and all that. So we give them a background, we set the stage, and then we let them go and we ask them to choose whatever you want. And they would be probably knowing that they would be what they would be needing, because they had the training and the education about what the industry expects. So they would select certain things uh, based on their preference, as well as the what's the industry require, and then they would do their own studies. And I would suggest to make all the exams open book, and maybe they can be given certain tasks in middle, because at the industry there's not always that you are getting what you want to do, right? So you might get a different requirement all of a sudden that you might not like, but so you have to prepare for that particular occurrence as well, that particular circumstance as well. So we can train it while doing the degree. We can jump certain attributes or certain tasks that are not directly related to what they are doing, but they have the training on learn to learn from their semester one, where they could know how to gather knowledge and implement to a solution. So use that knowledge and uh, do that particular thing, and also continue this process after the first 6 months as a teamwork, as a project based work. So not an individual learning. There is an individual component, but the exams, the projects, and everything has to be done. Maybe not for exams, but the projects and all that has to be done through a group setting, where the teamwork is practiced throughout the degree process. So if you do this right, then they can instantly transfer themselves and the knowledge and the habits and everything into the company that they're working on, because it feels like home. There's a seamless transition. Otherwise, they have to learn, come to a company and stay as an intern for 6 months, or the company has to have some overheads training them again and again to get them fit into the culture of the teamwork and all these communication and soft skills. But if they have done that already in the institutions level, yeah, it's a seamless transition.
Yes, I agree. As Sanjay mentioned in the beginning, it's about the speed and the time which has to be conserved every minute. So this approach would definitely benefit the students to work in the industry to the maximum. So moving to the next, with the continuous evolution of technology, as technology has been evolving, how can educators and trainers stay up to date with the latest advancements and effectively incorporate them into their teaching methodologies?
I'll take this one then. Okay, so basically, I do this even now, even today, next week, I had to do this again. So I'm teaching these web design, development, programming, AI, and all these courses at my institute. So basically, what happens is the syllabus we had to change 3 times for the last 3 batches. So every time the industry is now updating at a rapid pace. It's not fair to call it even a rapid space even anymore. It's growing and changing at an exponential rate. So every day you have something new. So how do you accompany this into your curriculums, into your training programs? So it's a real challenge for the educators coming up, because if you are only an academic person, if you're not aware about the industry or you don't practice in the industry, then you are really challenged on how to adapt to the changing environment. If you are in the industry, then you see what's changing, how rapidly it's changing, what are the new technologies that we have to work on, what are the new connections, what are the new tools, AI, from everything to AI to everything else. And you need to have that updated knowledge. So there are certain ways you can get updated knowledge. Even in my own organization, I don't practice all of the technologies that I'm talking about. I practice a certain set where we are good at. So for the ones that we are not, we are actually outsourcing or get some other consultant. So basically, in that sense, we can't just go and tell the students that, right, you go and learn this from somewhere else. We still need to guide them, not teach them, guide them on that area. So what happens is, we need to be updated first, and the best way for me to do this is TikTok. So in my case, TikTok is the main knowledge dripper every day for me in the early morning and as well as late night, because I spend about hour and a half, 1 hour and a half learning new things on TikTok. Because TikTok, I have this set of creators that I have followed. So whatever happens in US, 5 minutes, whatever happens in Germany, whatever happens in China, Japan, whatever, 5 10 minutes I get the updates. Okay, this is what has happened. So they also provide analysis and all that, and I do in turn in local language. I do that in turn to our local students as well. But I get that news, so I know what's happening, I know what's new. And that particular, even though there are 3 minute 1 minute clips, I know where to search for and learn more about it after that. So that's how you stay updated. So once you stay updated and you see this is a big enough change that should go into a curriculum, of course you have to go in and update your syllabus and practice it yourself. So basically, that's how you should conduct yourself. Every institution, every person who's teaching. Otherwise, you are outdated and you are falling behind.
I believe that every educator and trainer are going up a lot of things on their head because they have to be updated because you all make the next generation. So yeah. So how can we promote
Pointed to add
life?
there,
Sure.
pointed to add there, Saima. So I think one other point that as educators themselves, we also should be learning when it comes to, I mean, continuous education. It's not only about learning something. Unlearning and relearning is also really important parts of this whole process, because sometimes we have to let go certain things that we have learned. Maybe like that was the best framework or best toolkit that had we had about a decade back, but if that is not the case right now, we have to let it go, unlearn and relearn something new again. So that's something that we should get into the whole system of academia as well as the minds of the students, because the students also, I mean, just because they are following certain segments, they think, okay, I learned something, now I have to figure out how to use the things that I have learned and find a career with it. That doesn't work all the time, because sometimes the things that you learn get outdated. You have to forget, unlearn, and then relearn. So on that process, there are few things that, like, even from the global standards and all of that pointers, certain things that are coming, but it actually won't map into the rapid pace that Sanjay also initially mentioned. So, but it's still, like, if you can keep up with certain platforms like all this Safia framework, IEEE ACM, there's a good curriculum framework that they are coming up. So these will give a really good baseline, as well as certain technology predictions and all of that are taken care of and help people to build much more flexible curriculums which can actually adapt these certain practices in ad hoc manner. Otherwise, what will happen, you create a very rigid curriculum in the beginning, and just because of the formulas and certain other regulations that you have, now you have to deliver it, and by the time you are trying to change the curriculum, it will take about another 3 years, which is becoming a kind of a bigger problem. So there are more than enough ways where we can develop curriculums also by utilizing certain different frameworks, and these frameworks like Safia, the IEEE ACM curriculum that is there for IT, will actually help in terms of developing such type of things. Want to just add the point.
I completely agree with that point because it's totally acceptable. Yeah. So how can we promote lifelong learning and continuous professional development in the field of digital tech careers, considering the fast-paced nature of technological advancement?
Uh, I think this is something that we have to promote mostly in the education system, because once you are in the industry, you there's no way out. I mean, if you want to stay in the industry, you will have to continuously learn and keep upskilling yourself. Otherwise, you will be just stagnated in one position. There are again like a lot of things around different mass online courses would come help hand here. For example, like platforms like Coursera and all does provide really great things, but now rather than actually like focusing on more courses, there are different other ways there where people can engage with mini projects. Even like Coursera, if you go there's a separate segment around the project segment. Most of the people would only go for like different certification and all of that, but if you actually focus on the projects elements that's there out on the Coursera, that will actually help. And GitHub again, if you are following any tech site, there's a lot of projects that you can learn from GitHub, and certain other interesting areas as Sanjay mentioned, TikTok, because it actually taken care of what your interest is. And if you are actually interested in a certain area, and if you are finding that out within 5 minutes, the algorithm is smart enough to figure out, and it will keep pushing the related content on that manner. Just that you should be actually initially given a bit of a direction into the actual things that you should be learning on the platform rather than checking some dances.
Okay, yes, I agree that TikTok has been a very, it's an amazing platform. If you do, if you use it in the right way, just like Sanjay mentioned, we can learn massive amounts of knowledge through TikTok. And yes, so I guess it's the institutions which has to change their academia in order to do all this technology advancement and stuff, because the industry is obviously something which has a very long term focus oriented, whereas institutions take a long time. So, what are the roles? So, the next question is, what roles does the socio-economic background play in limiting access to education and training for the digital tech carriers? And what initiatives can be taken to bridge this gap?
Okay, so basically, English language knowledge is one of the main hurdles. So I guess I kind of obliged to say here that we have introduced a free AI tool where you can learn English. So there's 3D character that it speaks with you. So that takes out the dogma and the surrounding stigma on learn speaking English, because we in Sri Lanka mostly students kind of afraid whether they will go wrong, or they don't have someone who can at their whim, at their most convenient time to meet up with someone and talk in English. So when they're even at bed at night or resting at home, there is a AI companion now that you can talk to, and if you get something wrong, she will correct it and like and so forth. So it's a free tool that we have launched recently. That's one of the main things, and the devices and the accessibility standards throughout the country. So we live in Western province more for the most part, and we don't we kind of like most developed province in the country, biggest contributor to the GDP. But if you go outside a little bit further down, the situation is quite different. Even if you do have internet, most people have used certain packages where they would watch social media and YouTube, and for learning they don't have anything. So almost don't have anything. So that's the issue. So people use online stuff for entertainment uh, way more than they should be using it for learning as well. So this particular thing, with COVID, there was an incentive to go online, there was a requirement to go online, and that was with Zoom and all the other things. And what happened was, most of the teachers who are using Zoom does not know its potential and what can be done with it. They are just broadcasting what they teach on the white screen to the receiver at the other end, and then that became boring also. So we call it Zoom fatigue, and then people students are now looking back to go into physical forms of learning because they are so bored with the online learning. So online learning has to be interactive. You need to take into the consideration the capabilities a computer has. What are the input methods? It should be like game based, project based learning. That should be the one. So nobody was ready for that change, and still now people have gone back to the old traditional ways. But that was a golden opportunity as well. As far as I can remember, there was a plan from the government to give tabs to students, and that didn't work out for various reasons. So that's one of the major steps that we have missed. Uh, Even if they have given it, it need to be maintained correctly. So there should be a whole different aspect of a system change in terms of what we are looking at, and the thinking pattern of the teachers and the education administrators also has to change. So I see that in certain young generation of teachers, even in government schools, they are used to technology and they kind of believe in it, but they don't have this voice to make it heard still, because they're so young and they just came into the thing. But down the line, after 10 years or so, I think this will be rectified. But still, even now we are too late in that particular era. So we need to, have a program, have each village set up some sort of a center. We had that in the past, but that's not operating correctly. Some centers do function, some are not. So that's the thing. So society has to have certain knowledge leaders who understands these problems, and talk up with the temples, the monasteries, and places like that, and make sure that they are given access to students who are less privileged, to come to those places and learn free of charge, on all these free of charge, or maybe, I don't know, maybe there could be a financial model or a sponsorship model from other organizations. So that's where the system has to change. But again, we have a long way to go there. So it's just a mental change first, and then we have to go for the material change.
Yes. So as the
Uh,
question
to
was,
add in
yeah, yes.
to add in few pointers, Saima, like certain other problems that we have in terms of gender disparity, as well as the economic problems, as Sanjay also mentioned, are really important, because even if you look at the, let's say, like degree institutions that can provide a IT degree, other than in Colombo, we don't have any other place that actually, like, I mean, very few other than the state universities who are offering a full degree in an external place. Even for sometimes, like, even for them to complete, they might do up until the second year till in a remote regional location, but they have, in order to complete, they have to come back to Colombo, which is not actually necessary right now. I mean, sometimes they have just come here only to face the sit the exams. Even the lecturers are online. So these are certain other mechanisms that we can actually think of, in terms of at least like utilizing the certain regional networks that we have, which there are more than enough resources. Even if you think of, I mean, the current state, for example, the platforms like NYCs, and then the open universities, the technical colleges. So there's a very big network that we have in the country that we aren't actually fully utilizing for the potential. And if we, for imagine a place that has 100 computers, but only utilizing it for 2 days, maybe in the evening, for to conduct a session for maybe 30, 50 students. Why can't we actually utilize the same place by collaborating and pooling these resources? So there are such type of things that actually can focused on, where the people would be more focused towards actually learning and getting a skill certification and getting employable, rather than focusing on getting a specific certification from a particular institute. So if the institutions are more open around like these learning methodologies, then that will actually come up. And the other barrier is in terms of technology, which is now reducing, given to the certain perks that are coming up actually. And the primary perk has always been a salary. With the increase in salary and all of that demand in the IT industry, now we are seeing a less barrier. But still, if you go to a remote village, the top careers that we'd see would be always the doctor, teacher, nurse, among the
And
all these
whatever the
things.
government provides.
Exactly. And I mean, you can see this very clearly if you look at a teledrama, because that's the like message that's actually like walking out to the general audience. There's no software engineers that you'd see, and the only fair face where you'd see a technical guy is to do something wrong most of the cases, to hack into a system or something like that. So these again are certain barriers, and these actually impact certain marginalized communities sometimes. And then getting more female participation to the code. uh, I mean, it's proven even from the statistical point of view. Now we have more STEM, more female participation in the school system around the STEM. If you look at the O-level results, A-level results, that's proven. But when you come to the industry, we don't see that comparison. There's only about like 34% female participation in the industry, whereas it's a really good place for a female to be, given the certain other benefits, the work culture and all of that, in comparison, rather than like working for a in comparison, let's say, manufacturing plant or a garment line likewise. So these are again certain areas that we all should address and give more awareness to everyone in the pipeline. And then the language barrier, as Sanjay mentioned, there are a lot of things. For example, we start from the schools level itself. If you look at a school level IT curriculum and try to read that book, students themselves find it hard because of certain the words and all of that's are out there. So that's where the language also should be embedded, and we should be teaching them the core essence of the uh, technology and all of that, not the specific language or specific vocabulary. Because if you look at countries like India and China, they are quite heavy in terms of technology, but we don't praise them for the English that they talk. So that's the same mindset that we should be also focusing on. And if you just talk with the IT teacher, they themselves find it really hard for convince the students to write the IT paper in English. The only reason why the students are afraid in writing answers in English, because what they are getting checked is more around the grammar and all of that, not the actual core sense. So these are again like certain things that we should be really concerned about in terms of improving the IT and these digital literacy areas across the board. And I think there's another paradigm that's also coming in. I'll also touch in the same here, because you also asked about what kind of initiatives can be taken to bridge this gap. So there's multiple initiatives that's out there right now, focusing on the kids segment and then focusing on the people who are coming out from O levels and A levels. For example, if you only focus on the kids alone, Slascom itself has a program called Tech Kids, which is like trying to educate uh, kids in grade 3 to 9 in coding. There are multiple other organizations like the DP Education, STEM Up, Code.org. So there's a lot of different programs that are coming out there to actually teach different programs. And there are multiple local startups also engaging with this space now. For example, the Ignite space, even Sanjay and team, they are also engaged with this space. The Gavesha, Microbit, the Magic Bit. So all of these are actually engaging in terms of like improving and making IT and the technology more engaging for students to learn. And then once they actually graduate or coming out from the school, there's again another support system built around the industry. For example, there's a lot of free courses from Slascom itself. There's a platform called Future Careers Bridge, which initially tells about the fundamental skill set, and then from that, there are opportunities for them to actually go into different IT roles, like software engineering, project management, quality assurance, UI UX, likewise. And the Moderator University, they have this platform called OpenUI, which again is a like really good place, which has a full stack program course, as well as like the project management, which they formed recently. There's few other in things like QA, cybersecurity are again coming up on those platforms also. And we are also seeing now companies are also engaging. For example, in this example, HCL Tech itself has a program called TechB, which again is to support people to come out without having these all the blockers that we had in terms of socio-economic problems. Because back then you had to have a degree to come to the industry. Now there's a pathway. Even if you don't have that qualification as of a degree, there's a pathway. For example, through HCL, the Tech B program, there's a pathway to the industry where they can actually learn while they are engaging as an internship. There's many other companies who are following a bit of similar program. LSCG has their own program, ADL has their own program, Calci has their own program, which again supports these different type of areas. Those are again, I think, really good ways that we as an industry can think of, rather than only relying on a system change that we require around the whole education system. So there's a smaller steps that everyone can take, and if everyone is taking these smaller steps, then the system change that we hope will actually happen by these individual actions.
Exactly. So I guess the picture is taken wrong these days. So I guess with all these minorities and the marginalized communities, which takes the picture wrong, is what is affecting lives as well. So as you mentioned, I would like to ask, what are the awareness, the lack of awareness people have? So how can we address the lack of awareness and exposure to tech careers among underrepresented communities such as ethnic minorities, just like you mentioned, Mr. Dhammika, or individuals for rural areas?
Okay, I'll address few. For example, like around getting one of the like biggest barrier that we are seeing, especially in the north and east, is getting girls into tech careers. Because there again is from the media, especially more than the companies or the industry themselves, has created a culture where if you think of a IT job, they would say about like working always sometimes at office or sometimes even at late, and sometimes like it will be just like okay, these guys would engage too much, they would have parties and all of that, uh, which sometimes like the industry themselves is embracing as a more of open culture because you can work anytime. There are a lot of company engagement events likewise, but certain audiences would change this message and pitch it in a different way. So with that, like they think if you are coming to the IT industry, okay, I have no way out, I have to work night shift, which is not the case. I mean, the certain companies that I have worked with, they never had night shift. All the people are back home by around 6. Once in a while there might be one day that people would engage, but then those are again depend. There can be certain other companies that actually has night shift because that those companies are building that way. These are the certain things that we should actually bring into the general audience so that they actually are aware. Okay, there are companies which actually has night shift, there are companies which actually doesn't have, or same in terms of like certain other benefits, certain other support system around it. So that again is one really important point. And then how exactly like as individuals when they follow a certain problem, what are the exact like sources that they would actually go for? Because in Sri Lanka, the social support system, we know everyone usually by a 2-3 degree connection, but we don't actually connect. We don't actually, when we have a certain problem, we don't ask that problem from another person. That's very rare, though we really know those people, but we are really bad at like questioning and getting things resolved for our problem. So trying to figure out a mentor or a person who can actually like support in terms of these different areas, trying to find a person who has actually overcome that barrier and discussing the same problems that you have with them are again really important, because that personalization and the self touch that we have can solve most of the problems that we have, rather than just relying on uh, just a social taboo that we are hearing. So that's a small point that I want to highlight. Sanjay, you may have things to add in.
Yeah, one more thing on something that you said previously, that you talked about in teledramas and our whatever our culture, the software engineer or some tech person is depicted as a wrongdoer. So I that reminded me when Kumbio was first aired in 2017. The first few episode is about entrepreneurship, and I was really excited. Okay, this is going somewhere. This is going to be the best drama. We can see someone from grassroots going up to having a big company someday. So that's how the drama started, and then he made himself to con artist at the end. But so that's what we need actually. So if we can have, like, if you watch television shows in other countries, even in South Korea, Vietnam, all these countries, they have this particular method of influencing society through art, right? So they basically promote all these tech shows, even science fiction shows. They are not big budget shows anyway, so they are like within a minimum budget you could influence the society that in that positive way. But we don't do that. We always go for some bad example. There's nothing good can come out of any of these teledramas or any of these art forms that we currently have. So first we need to change that. If we change that, like 50% of the problem is solved.
Absolutely, I agree with that point as well. So, moving on to the next question, I would like to ask: how can we address the lack? What are the potential barriers? As you all mentioned, the barriers. What are the potential barriers for individuals transitioning into tech careers from non-tech backgrounds, and how can we facilitate their entry into the industry?
You want to take it or?
Go ahead, Sanjay, I'll add in.
Okay. So basically, I have few friends who are doing mechanical and civil engineering who wants to transfer into this area. So they talk with me on what to do next and how we can come on board. So what happens is that in terms of salary scales, IT industry is better, but they have to join as a beginner at first. So they are used to a certain amount of salaried life, and they cannot be expected to get that from a company that they just joined in a different industry. So they need to have some sort of a saving or a kind of a buffer zone where they could play around. So that's a big issue for people who are having families and a lot of commitments and loans and stuff. But for people who don't, and even for people who does, what I suggest is that when you have to plan it around, you just can't jump and join within a month. You have to plan it around for 6 months, 1 year time, and then gradually develop your skills and then transition. Even if you do gradually develop your skills, the problem then they face is that the concepts are kind of new to them, and the way, I mean, this is so rapidly changing. Those industries might not be that much facing rapid change, especially certain areas there are that have not changed in the last 5 years, but here it's rapidly changing. So that particular way of handling a lot of information, there's an information overload. So you need to be really mentally prepared to filter out the unnecessary clutter and just focus on what you know, what you want to know, and what you learn, and then focus on that, practice on that, and always keeping yourself updated. So whatever we talked about in the last round about keeping ourselves updated as educators, they need to be updated themselves as learners. So that's one of the major barriers for them to adapt to this. So that's why you need to plan your transition instead of just thinking, okay, next month I'll be quit my job and join another IT company. That's not going to work. You're going to be fed up and you're going to be frustrated. So you need to transition yourself slowly but surely, making sure that you understand the culture, listen to the discussions like these, listen to what other industry people are saying on LinkedIn, YouTube, connect with them on LinkedIn, and have a discussion and get various viewpoints and data points, and make sure that your approach is smooth as possible for you in order to grasp these new concepts. Otherwise you're going to get frustrated, and it's going to be a very hectic future for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ms. Damita, you
So
have any points to
few
add? Yeah.
pointers. Yeah. So few things. The most of the individuals, when they want to actually do a transition, uh, they they don't plan the transition. They'd either like rely on the situation at the current point, and if you are only focusing on the current point, then it's really hard to do a bit of a transition. So there's like usually there's this change that people would think, when you are in a kind of a transition, don't change it all three C's. Three C's in the sense the career, company, and the country. If you try to change all these three things, it's really hard. And we sometimes see that happening right now. People would go abroad, trying to find a tech career in an unknown country. That's a really challenging area. So what suggested is trying to change about like two parameters, maybe like in the same company or in by being in the same country, trying to change the career and then shift it. When you are doing that career change, at least like have a bit of a plan for at least about 3 years. If you don't have a plan for about 3 years, it's really hard to actually come back to the place that you were in, as Sanjay also mentioned, because they have to let go of some things that they've been learning, and they have to commit themselves for about like a year two, or two, actually to skill something and then master it. Because just by joining the company as of entry level, the company won't uh, like promote them for the upper tiers. They actually have to show the actual talent that they have for about like a 2 years. So there's have to like about like these 3 years planning that they have to do. When they are doing that also, like even some of our friends would ask this question, Machang, IT field sounds really good. What are the courses that I can follow? What I'd ask is, what exactly do you want to do? Have you at least figure out a specific job area or a job that you want to dive into? Because gone are the days that you can just follow a computing degree and you can stay in the university for about like 2 3 years and then you can figure out your job path. Because now you are in a path, and if you are looking into a transition, you have to be very focused on a specific job role that you want to go into, and very focused you are learning throughout that area. Otherwise, IT is a really big area, and if you try to learn three different things, that itself will burden you and you will end up nowhere. So that's another area that person has to be worried about. And another easier way to do this transition is also by utilizing these different other I mean, in the industry itself, like we have two main areas: IT, that is like the primary IT industry, and then the BPM industry, that's the business process management side of things. So it's really easy for some individuals to actually come through the BPM to the tech. But that again, if you only have a plan, otherwise what will happen, you will move into the BPM, you will start earning really good money, and then you will just stay there. So that's also happen. For example, like imagine a person who's actually having technical skills in accounting. For that person, it's really easy to move into a digital accounting side of things around the BPM career, and from that they can actually transition to these different other areas. For example, there are a lot of platforms like SAP and all of that are really quite in terms of like technical implementations. So those are again really good path, because in that manner you can actually utilize certain learnings that you have had previously, because IT industry is actually involved in solving problems for all other different disciplines. So only by having technical knowledge won't help. If you are a person who's actually having a technical knowledge, and let's say in manufacturing, then you can really easily engage with certain problems in the manufacturing, because you actually know the problems, rather than trying to get a BA to convince that problem and transfer that knowledge to a technical team, because you are a person who had the experience in the manufacturing. So that transition is quite easy for them. And there are like even local companies who are actually hiring, for example, even from some of the universities, they'd hire just the chemical engineers, the production engineers for the IT companies, because they have that skill set. So when you are doing this transition, also try to figure out certain areas that will actually help and actually can utilize your knowledge that you bring in from the previous career, because in that way the transition is much easier. Otherwise, as Sanjay mentioned, two things: one, they have to be ready to uh, level down their uh, mindset and be ready to engage with the interns and all of that for at least like about 2 3 years up until they get the game.
Finance professionals can go for fintech, health professionals can go for health tech, education professionals can go for ed tech, engineering professionals can go for software engineering directly, something like that. So dash
Exactly.
tech on whatever you are doing.
So
Because
yeah,
whether
so
we like it or not, everything will be digitized in the years to come, as
yes.
of like a more of a supportive mechanism, just like we've been using the paper, and now most of the things are in digital. Likewise, the transition will happen. So the best is to like figure out the closest path that you have and then move there, rather than only trying for the software engineering. That again is another like kind of a taboo that I also would highlight, because lot of degrees and lot of programs has this name called software engineering. With that, most of the people would think, okay, if you are going for the IT industry, software engineer is the position to go, and only the software engineers will get the higher salaries, which is not the case. That's something that everyone should understand. Even from the composition wise, only about like a 40% of the 40 to 60 composition in the companies are software engineers. There are a lot of other roles, and sometimes with the demands that's also coming in, certain other areas are much higher in demand. For example, if you are a person really good with the UI UX aspects of it, sometimes company even can't allocate only for a one project, because the billing for that person is much higher than a normal developer who's engaged with. Same way sometimes even with the areas like cybersecurity.
All right. So yes, I completely agree, and I guess maybe it's by default that the word software engineering has implanted in everybody's head. So yes. So with that, I would like to end this maybe end this discussion, and I guess it's definitely a very informative, comprehensive, and very much full of full of insights on technology, especially the digital tech, which is going to evolve and which is evolving in the future and even in the current times, especially with all these AI tools and stuff. The world is literally happening with tech. So with that, I would like to end the most awaited session for today. So thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay and Mr. Dhammika, for amidst all your busy schedules, having time here with us today with HCL Tech and Chocolate. So thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Saima, HCL Tech as well as Chocolate for organizing this, and hope audience got quite a few information. If there's any, feel free to like reach out to us through Chocolate or HCL. We'd be happy to help in any ways.
Yes, please
Definitely.
do share my details as well if someone asks.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.